Today on CityCast Houston, it's the CityCast Houston Award Show. Now, I'm not dressed up in a tux, but imagine that I am, because we're going to be honoring 3 people who are making a change in our city for better and some for worse. And this first ever CityCast Houston Awards is brought to you by our exclusive sponsor, Downtown Houston Plus. Joining me to pick our winners and to talk about how you, the listeners, voted are Lisa Falkenberg, who's the editor of opinion at the Houston Chronicle, and ABC 13 morning anchor Rita Garcia. Also, stick around until the end because the CityCast Houston team is joining me to hand out some fun awards and to play back some memorable moments from the year. It's Monday, December 16th. I'm Raheel Ramzanali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Welcome into the first ever CityCast Houston Awards. I can't wait to talk about everyone that's impacted our city. Lisa and Rita, I am so excited. But first of all, good morning, Lisa. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Rita, nice to have you on as well. How are you?
Oh, thank you. I'm doing well. Just, excited for the holidays, obviously, and there's a lot to talk about. It's been quite the year here in Houston, right?
It really has. So let's start with this, because there have been a lot of moments in the city that we'll remember from 2024. So without using Google, don't look at your notes or anything. What was your moment of the year, Lisa?
Not in a good way, but it was probably the derecho, however people are saying that. It was, I guess, the first time that we had been so close to tornadoes, at least in my family, and so we had all the kids in the hallway and didn't know what we would find when we got out there. We had a bit of damage, but being after the derecho, we had no power. We were lucky enough to be able to get in a hotel, but my son still walks around every now and then and checks the lights to make sure they're working.
Oh.
So for a young child, it's pretty traumatic.
No, absolutely. That was one of those moments where it reminded us that Mother Nature does not play, and all of a sudden she can unleash her wrath at any point. How about you, Rita? What was your moment of the year?
Yeah, definitely weather related. I mean, I think the derecho, but also what followed that was Hurricane Beryl, right? I mean, the derecho, I distinctly remember that night because my husband had an event, and living so close to downtown, I said, you better be careful because this is moving in. The wind is really howling. I'm going to, we got away from the windows even at one point at my place because we have these really big windows, and just kind of looking out there, seeing everything swaying. Then when my neighbors, we literally watched as they lost their fence and some of the trees come down. I was like, okay, we need to give it a second. Like, I don't think you should leave or go anywhere. We thought we waited it out. Then he called me from the road and said, I am going through downtown and the windows are blown out. There is debris everywhere. There is glass. I think I need to pull over. I'm like, what is happening right now? And we are new parents. And so that was, I think, gave me a totally different perspective on things, because obviously my first priority is to protect our daughter and to just stay away from the windows, kind of huddle up, wait for word. And so that is for sure memorable. And then obviously we had Hurricane Beryl right after. And that was something else that I think we were all in this together here in the city of Houston without power. So that was definitely a moment in time that will not be forgotten.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about those linemen that helped after Hurricane Beryl in one of our categories. But first, let's lay out the 3 categories. We have power and politics, food and drink, and H-Town heroes. But let's kick it off with power and politics. Now, these are elected officials or regular everyday Houstonians who've used their position or voice to make an impact in our community, again, for better or for worse. The nominees are Mayor John Whitmire, HISD Superintendent Mike Miles, who is leading the state takeover of the school district, Alexis Nungarai, who is the mother of Jocelyn Nungarai, and then she was actively part of Trump's campaign for hardline immigration policies, and then parents in HISD who organized against the $4.4 billion school bond that did not pass. So those are the nominees. Lisa, why don't you kick it off? Can you make a case for any of these nominees?
Well, I would think that no one has had more impact than, the state-appointed superintendent, Mike Miles. This is a big city and there are other districts and there's a lot going on, but the concern around Mike Miles, the impact has been great. And, whether you send your kids to HISD or not, there are a lot of property values at stake if the district is perceived to be plummeting in quality and quality of life, I guess we should say. So leaning toward Mike.
All right. So you're going towards Mike Miles. How about you, Rita? Can you make a case for any of the nominees?
Yeah, I definitely think Mayor John Whitmire, only because obviously he is the face of the city of Houston. And also because when he took office back in January, his main priority has been to tackle crime. And that is something that I think we report on every single day here at ABC 13, and it affects so many people. One of the things he said when he took office back in January was he didn't want meetings, he wanted action. And so I think that one of the big stories we've recently talked about is how he's trying to tackle homelessness. We talked about the Montrose bridges and how he's allocating or reallocating, I should say, money that was originally going to go to fixing those to continue to fund this new homelessness initiative. Aside from tackling crime, how we've been reminded that that was his main priority when he was sworn in January, and he continues with that. And it's just one of those issues that I think everyone is worried about, everyone is thinking about, and everyone is affected by, right? Because they watch the news, they see what's going on. Some people catch up on social media, and you see a lot of the stories here in Houston make national news a lot of times. And so I think people are turning to our city leaders, specifically Mayor John Whitmire, and saying, what are you going to do about this? And so I definitely think that Mayor Whitmire stands out in this category.
Yeah. For both of the nominees that y'all just discussed, there seems to be one common trend that I've picked up, and it's that it's their way or the highway, right? When you think about Mike Miles, he is not budging on his new education system. He's not budging on many things. He's here to revamp the district, right? Because he was appointed by the state and dismisses parents' thoughts and teachers and principals who have concerns about the way he's operating. Same thing with Mayor John Whitmire. It's his way or the highway. He did get the $1.5 billion firefighter deal done, and that was a big thing that he was focused on. But he's also making some big leadership changes like the fire chief, police chief, and also head of public works. And look, all these leaders are put into place, but I still get this sense that it's his way or the highway. Do y'all have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would push back on that. I've covered him probably 20 years since I was a kid covering the legislature. And he listens when he wants to.
Yeah.
And I think that he actually is present. He's on the streets. He's talking to people everywhere he goes, and he does listen. He has, in my opinion, his biases, and he's not as open-minded, say, toward the Bike Houston people as he needs to be. Yeah. But I think he's a strong-willed person. He's coming in wanting to get his agenda accomplished, and some things he's not going to listen on. I think he was full steam ahead on this firefighter deal. But one thing I've always been impressed by is that he's not polished. He speaks sometimes without thinking. I've always thought his heart was in the right place, and he hires really smart people who do know their stuff, generally. So I can't say that about Mike Miles. I can't say he listens. He certainly wasn't elected, so he didn't feel a responsibility to really understand where the community is coming from. He seems to lump the critics into the noise box, and dismiss them. It's a hubris. There's this kind of arrogance about him. I continue to believe that he really does want to do what's best for the kids, but he thinks he's the only one with the answer, and that's a problem. And I can't say he hires competent people. So he's removed some really competent principals, and hired some that aren't so great. And that's a problem.
Well, what we can say is that parents are going to continue to make their voices heard. Just last week, we reported on how the HIC school board had their final meeting for the year, and parents definitely expressed their frustrations about a lot of things, about the turnover when it comes to teachers, about obviously the state takeover, curriculum, even the amount of leadership changes, right? Parents are frustrated. They certainly feel blindsided Some that we've interviewed have talked about that, how they
Hmm.
find out that their teacher has changed or that their principal has changed via email or a letter sent home or their kids just talking about it. So um, yeah, I mean, there is no doubt that parents are going to continue to make their voices heard.
And here's how CityCast Houston listeners voted on the first category. And there were a lot of people who thought that Mayor John Whitmire has had the biggest impact in Houston. He came in third. There were not a lot of votes for Alexis Nungaray, who rallied with Trump, and Ted Cruz for hardline immigration policies. There were a lot of votes for the HISD parents who organized against the bond. But the overwhelming pick by CityCast Houston listeners was, of course, HISD Superintendent Mike Miles, who was put in by the state, and they believe he's had the biggest impact on Houstonians this year, for better or worse.
Right. I mean, the Chronicle editorial board has actually done a lot of reporting on the homelessness issue. And so I see where Rita's coming from. And if the mayor makes it some changes there that have an impact, he would be my choice. But we're waiting, I think, for a lot of the impact on what he's trying to do. He has some ambitious goals, but in terms of the impact, we've actually seen that strongly, more strongly from Mike Miles.
Right. And just to be clear, I definitely think that Mike Miles has had a huge impact on Houstonians, right? I feel like we report on HISD every single day. But the reason why I went with Mayor Whitmire is because of crime. Crime has obviously been top of mind. It's exactly what, his initiative has been from the beginning, being sworn in. And crime is something that is going to affect everyone. Everyone wants to know what is going to be done about crime in their community and in their neighborhood.
Rita, it's funny you mentioned HISD and how you all talk about it all the time at our audience appreciation party. Somebody came up to us and said, hey, look, it's HISD cast. And it's because we're also talking about it a lot. So amongst the panel here, who is the winner for Power and Politics? Lisa, I feel like it's Mike Miles. Any pushback here?
Well, there are two of us, so I'm not sure.
I get a vote too.
You get a vote too. You're going to tie. I stick with my.
There are three of us.
Yeah.
I stick with my. Oh, really? You want us to duke it out? Like, what do you want to? Okay, I stick with Mike Miles.
Yeah, I'm going Mike Miles as well.
Okay, I originally said Mayor John Whitmire because obviously crime is something that affects everyone. But I can definitely see why people have chosen Mike Miles and why, that's a unanimous decision with the both of you. And, it is the largest district in the state of Texas. We're talking about a lot of kids and a lot of families and a lot of frustrated parents.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get to food and drink. And if there's one thing that the city is known for, it is our incredible restaurant scene and all the diverse cuisines that are here. And here are the nominees for food and drink. Emmanuel Chavez of Tatamo, which has won a Michelin star in Texas in the first ever Michelin Guide. And Chavez is also Houston's sole James Beard finalist. Then we have the Turkey Leg Hut and all of their drama that happened this year. The third nominee is Ken Hoffman, and he is nominated for a Lifetime Achievement Award. He was a longtime food critic and the columnist for Culture Map, as well as the Houston Chronicle and Houston Post previously. Ken Hoffman loved all things fast food. He was a dear friend of mine. He passed away this year. So here's to Hoffy. And then Allison Cook, Houston Chronicle's food columnist, who changed food writing in our state and the country, frankly. She helped elevate so many H-Town chefs and restaurants over her career, and she is now going to be retiring. So those are the four nominees. Rita, why don't you start this one? Is there one that jumps off for you want to make a case for?
So I definitely think every single nominee stands out for a different reason. But in this one, I'm going to go with Emmanuel Chavez because I read his story. I peeked on his Instagram, and I just think that aside from the food, his story is one to be told and to be shared. He talks about his humble beginnings, and his Instagram is very colorful. You have to realize I also have a toddler at home. I told you about earlier. I don't go anywhere. So I live vicariously with people that are trying new things and experiencing fun stuff in the city of Houston. And so I checked out his restaurant, and obviously you mentioned he just earned a Michelin star. And so I think it's worth checking out. And listening to what he has to say, trying out the food, the cuisine. I even printed out the menu. I've got it in front of me just because I was like, I want to see what's on this menu. And it says in the fine print, subject to change. So I guess there's that. That's out the window. I guess I have to go now, Raheel.
His Instagram is so good, and it's dishwasher 89, right? Like kind of celebrating where he started from in the restaurant industry. And he highlights so many immigrant chefs that make Houston's foodie scene what it is and our culture as well. How about you, Lisa?
Well, I'm biased, of course. I mean, we've got my longtime colleague, Ken Hoffman, who deserves the recognition. But I think I would go with Allison Cook. She's just, I mean, reading her through the years, I just feel transported by so many of her pieces. I mean, she's a poet, really. Poet of the pizza crust, or, whatever it is that she's describing. And I can just recall reading a few of her reviews and then just drooling and being like, oh my God, I have to get to that restaurant before everyone else reads this.
Yeah.
And there's a long line. So, Allison Cook is one of, if not the best writer at the Houston Chronicle. And I lament that she is leaving us. She certainly made her mark. And I think that everyone can learn from the artistry that she put into her journalism. And, foodies, of course, appreciate everything she did, but writers too. Sometimes in journalism, there's not enough craft. And I just love that she celebrated the craft of food and the craft of language.
It's funny you mentioned Allison Cook and everything that she's accomplished. That's who our listeners voted on in our nominees. And Allison Cook won by a landslide. It wasn't even close. Turkey Leg Hut came in second, by the way, in all of their drama, which one day will make a great Netflix documentary, I'm sure, because there's a lot to unpack there, unfortunately. But Allison Cook definitely got the vote of the listeners. I'm going to cast my vote officially for Ken Hoffman. He was one of my closest friends, and I still can't believe he's gone. But the way he would write about fast food was art, right? Like he's breaking down a cheeseburger that McDonald's just unveiled, and he would make it sound like the biggest deal ever. And it was so much fun. He would also just make you feel like you were part of the food scene no matter what, right? Like it was very accessible. And then he was such an advocate for pets around the city. He would always talk about, dogs and cats that were available for adoption. And he was just the best. And his humor was second to none. I'm officially casting my vote for Ken Hoffman, but it seems like we're in a tie here. So the listeners' vote would decide this, and it's going to Allison Cook.
Yeah. I mean, Ken, I'll second what you said. Ken, he was known for another thing that's sadly lacking in at least print journalism. It's comedy, humor. And
Yes.
We all need that respite from the terrible news that we have to face every day. So I so admired that in him. I think overall the audience has spoken, and I see what they're saying. And I think that, we're good going with Allison Cook.
I unfortunately did not have the great pleasure of meeting the great Ken Hoffman, but 22 years as a city columnist, it's a long time. And just seeing all the tributes that were pouring in, it was just beautiful to see all the things that people had to say about him and his life and his legacy. So that was actually very sad to see that he had passed. And as far as Allison Cook, all I have to say is congratulations to you.
Yeah, congratulations, Allison Cook. What an incredible career. And hopefully she doesn't stop writing somewhere. We'll see her work again because she is one of the best. Okay, let's get to our final category, and this one is called H-Town Hero. Now, this category is about someone who represents the spirit of Houston and has uplifted our community. And I can tell you right now, this is going to be a tough one to pick because the nominees are absolutely incredible. The first one is linemen after Hurricane Beryl, right? All those linemen who helped us restore power, took a berating from people, and they worked in the heat just nonstop. It seemed like 24/7. It took 10 days to restore 98% of affected customers. Our second nominees are Matt Lanza and Eric Berger of Space City Weather. What would we do without them, right? Because they were on top of so many big forecasts, and they have created a hype-free forecast that has helped so many Houstonians. And they actually won the Houstonia magazine Houstonians of the Year award. So there is that. Then we've got Simone Biles, Houston's hometown girl who made us so proud at the Olympics. She is the greatest gymnast ever, overcame the mental health hurdles, and once again dominated the Olympics, truly is the GOAT. Then you've got Sheila Jackson Lee, the longtime Congresswoman. Sheila Jackson Lee died from pancreatic cancer this July. She was one of the biggest figures in politics, locally, nationally. No matter what event you had, Sheila Jackson Lee was there. And she is just an incredible force. So rest in power, Congresswoman. All right, Lisa, you start this one off. Who are you making a case for?
Well, you're right. This is difficult.
It's tough.
I mean, we had linemen here from Kentucky who had never felt a Houston summer, Houston heat. And some of them they faced threats and, people, I don't know if there was actually assault, but there were definitely threats that they faced. And it was terrible. And we certainly owe them a debt. Obviously, Eric Berger and Matt Lanza are, I really admire what Eric has done. He's also a former colleague of mine and used to be Sci Guy at the Chronicle. He had his science column, and he just decided what he wanted to do. He charted his own course and said, I want to get a meteorology degree, and then I want to go do this other thing where we're filling a void that I guess the community really needs. It's not about hype. It's not about ratings. It's just two guys trying to make some sense of the weather. And sometimes they call it, sometimes they don't. So I respect what they do. Obviously, Sheila Jackson Lee, forced to be reckoned with. Mm-hmm. And, we sometimes were critical of her. I took plenty of call from her, raised voice, we'll call it, on the other end of the phone, not happy with something I had written or that the editorial board had written, but boy, did we have respect for her and her work ethic. I will have to go with Simone Biles.
Okay.
Because I feel like today, especially today, she's a tiny woman, but we need somebody to look up to. She is small in stature, but so big in the stature of, obviously, the athletes, cultural significance, her heroism in talking about her mental illness and the leadership that she showed, stepping aside the last time, and allowing the team to go forward, without her, but with her support. I just think a lot of people disappoint us in politics and in pop culture and sports, and she hasn't.
Yeah.
She's strong in every way you can imagine.
That's a great person to vote for. How about you, Rita?
Gosh, this one is so. Can we recognize all five?
Yeah, look, again, voting for one doesn't take away anything from the other nominees, right? Because again, these are H-Town heroes. Everyone did something incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Lisa, when you talk about Simone Biles. I mean, 11 Olympic medals, one of the most decorated female Olympic gymnasts. She was so fun to watch this year at the Olympics. And, I also was able to see part one of her docuseries or documentary that's out on Netflix. And I just love watching her. And I think that she had a huge impact on the world of gymnastics as well. I mean, how many little girls watch her, look up to her, have enrolled in gymnastics, want to be just like her. And so she definitely really stands out in this category. But I have to recognize, at a strong second, the linemen, because like you said, Lisa, they came in from all over. I remember a crew from Florida and seeing these men and women on the front lines, helping Houstonians who they've never even met, doing their job. You can't help but think that they leave their families to come and help ours. And so it was just one of those moments where I feel like that's definitely a strong second. they might not be here from Houston, but, we were all a very strong community. And,
Mhm.
again, resiliency rising during a time when we all desperately needed in the middle of July, I might add,
Yeah,
if you've ever been to our area or visited our area, you know that it can be a very tough time without electricity. So, and props to the Space City Weather team as well. I mean, we had our team of weather folks here at ABC 13 as well, working around the clock. So, I witnessed firsthand how difficult the job can be.
hmm
And, analyzing all the data is important to keeping Houstonians and their families safe. So there's that. And then Sheila Jackson Lee, she started her career in 1994, her tenure, I should say, in 1994. I mean, there's a lot to be said for that and all her work and service and life and really legacy that she dedicated to politics. And so this is hard for me, but I'm going to go with Simone Biles for sure.
Okay, Simone Biles officially. I
As
love
she
it.
was just fun to watch, a huge influence. I agree with you, Lisa. We need something positive, and it's just so cool to watch her now as she cheers on her hubby, who's an NFL player, and following her on Instagram. And I'm looking forward to part 2 of her docuseries.
The CityCast Houston listeners had Simone Biles in a tie for third place with the linemen who helped after Hurricane Beryl to restore power. Sheila Jackson Lee was second place. In first place for the audience, it was Matt Lanza and Eric Berger at Space City Weather. Everyone just loves them. And by the way, we did have some write-in nominees that I want to bring up. You have Mattress Mac. And then you couldn't do a Houston show without mentioning Beyonce. Like, yeah, Beyonce had a 2024 to remember as well. So those were some of the write-ins. I'm just going to cast my vote officially, even though it won't matter because it's 2-1 at this point. And I'm going to go with the linemen after Hurricane Beryl for all the reasons that both y'all have laid out. Oh, they were so important because every time we would see a lineman in our neighborhood, we're like, yes, the Avengers are here. They're going to help us here. They're going to restore the power. They became superheroes, right? Every time the power would come back on. And unfortunately, they became villains as well, even though it was out of their control, like when power wasn't on. So shout out to them. So that's my official vote. But officially, it's Simone Biles amongst this panel.
No surprise.
Hate to go against the audience, but
Simone Biles it is.
Yeah.
All right, that was a tough task picking winners for the first ever CityCast Houston Awards, but we accomplished it. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. Rita, thank you as well. And can't wait to have y'all back on again in 2025.
Sure, enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me. And what a year it's been, right, for Houston, kind of how we started off the top. And we'll do it again next year. What do you say? 2025.
Yeah, let's do it. That was ABC 13 anchor Rita Garcia, along with Houston Chronicle's editor of opinion, Lisa Falkenberg. I can't thank them enough for joining us for our first ever CityCast Houston Awards. Now, don't go anywhere because we actually have a few more awards to give out. And think of this as the after party to the awards. And with that, I want to welcome in our entire CityCast Houston team. Brooke Lewis, hey, Houston editor, what's up? How are you?
Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Of course, producer extraordinaire Carleon Jones, what's up?
Hey, y'all.
And executive producer Laura Isensee, how are you?
Hey, I can't believe it's the end of 2024.
I know we made it and 2025 is right around the corner, but before we move forward, we have to look back at some funny moments and pick some fun awards. I'll kick things off just to let everyone know like what this is going to be about. I want to give out an award for the best looking guest on CityCast Houston for 2024. And that is going to be Raz Halili of Pier 6 Seafood and also Fish Taco Company. He was on talking about the best seafood. Laura, you were on that episode with me. You were producing that one. Do you agree Raz Halili is the best looking guest we've had on in 2024? And no disrespect to other guests, by the way.
I was just going to say, no disrespect to any other of our good looking and good talking guests, which is what we really care about. But yes, I mean, just after we had that taping, I got a magazine at my house and Raz was on the cover. And I was like, this is a good looking man. And they have great tasting food. And so thank you, Raz. Want to have you back on.
It was funny. After the taping, I messaged Laura and I said, Raz is very good looking, right? Am I the only one? We had a good laugh about that. So yeah, that was definitely a moment for me. And by the way, Raz has a little acceptance speech.
Hey guys, this is Raz. Thank you for the award and for the opportunity to be on Houston CityCast. I had a lot of fun with you all, and I hope to be back on soon.
All right, let's get to our next award, and presenting it is Carleon Jones. What's up, Carly? Tell me what you got.
Okay, my award is for the best blooper or the wildest soundbite, whichever one you want to call it. And mine has to go to the one, the only electric personality herself, Miss Antrashell Nova. She's always bringing such fun moments to the show, but there was one particular moment that stands out for me, and that was a show that was leading up to her birthday. Here's the clip.
When people say Houston is a food desert, no, you got to go to Funk's Kitchen. You just got to know where to eat, darling. And fine dining is my portion. Hence why when I saw this big ass lobster mountain coming out, I got excited. Because the first thing I thought is, this is how you celebrate. Now, you just can't eat that for a regular meal. Oh, no.
That's a celebration.
That's a celebration. It's a party, darling.
Oh, yes. Big ass Lobster Mountain is going to live rent free in my head forever now. That's what I'm always going to think of. How about y'all?
Yeah, I mean, Antrashell, I've known her for a long time, even before my CityCast days, even before her CityCast days. And I just love her spirit. She always brings a smile to my face. And I hope she's bringing a smile to all of our listeners' faces, too.
And I just love finally getting to meet Antrashell face to face at our Rockets live taping, because she's just as hilarious in person as she is on the mic. So she's just a funny person. She cracks me up all the time.
She really is. And her partner in crime, sort of, every time we have her on, it seems like Evan Mintz is on recapping the news on Fridays and doing some other episodes as well. But I've got one more award I want to hand out. And this one is the award for biggest fan of the Ike Dike.
Bum, bum, bum.
Drum roll, please.
Build the Ike Dike. Thank you so much for this award, but really the credit should go to all the people doing the hard work. I just tweet a lot. It should go to the people in our congressional delegation who are getting federal funding for this and approval for it, people in the legislature who are creating the special taxing district, Bill Merrill, who created the idea, the Bay Area Economic Partnership, who've been advocating for it, all of the real people out there. So thank you to them for their hard work.
Yes, definitely a lot of love to everyone who is working on the Ike Dike, trying to get it done, from political figures to community activists, everyone. But still, Evan, you are still Bill the Ike Dike guy, all right? Because that is your saying. So there is that. Okay, our next award presenter is going to be executive producer Laura Isensee. What do you got for us?
So I wear a lot of hats on the team, but one of my favorite things that I get to do is I produce and mix our Wednesday food episodes. And it's always the highlight of my week because we often have Erica Chang from cron.com. And whenever she's on for what we call our food roundups, she brings so much fun and humor and spice and flavor to the conversation. I'm always learning something new. And it's not just the places that are getting fancy awards, which I love, but also the hole in the walls, the mom and pop shops, places where you can get udon curry, like someplace on Long Point that you will never have heard of except from Erica. So let's play a clip from Erica. And this is when she was covering the big drop of the Michelin Guide in Texas.
I was like, oh no, they can't snub Houston like this. But then the rest of the night was just boom, 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 boom. Houston, Houston, Houston. It was insane work. I shut up real quick because I was like, okay, never mind. I shouldn't have been worried at all. Like, I don't know why I was worried.
This award is for her. She is our guest most likely to make me hungry. Thank you, Erica, for every time you're on.
I love having Erica on. It's so much fun. Her energy is second to none. And she's the only guest I feel like that will kind of keep me in my place. I don't know if y'all have ever heard it, but she's not afraid to like snap back at me.
She's so hilarious. She definitely keeps Raheel in check, and her energy is always like just coming through every single time. I love her so much.
All right, Brooke, you are up. Final award of the year. What do you got for us?
So my award goes to, and we shouldn't be surprised, it has Montrose in the title, but most likely to be my neighbor in Montrose, aka the Inner Loop, which goes to our fabulous guest, Rosamond Varani. She was a new Houstonian deciding where to live back in August. and she picked Montrose. So I'm not going to say that I'm picking her just because she picked the neighborhood that I live in, but I just thought the episode overall was so much fun. I love that we were all kind of fighting for our neighborhood, our part of Houston that we live in. She asked really good questions. I felt like she was such a thoughtful guest, and she just really represents a Houstonian. I think a Houstonian just trying to figure it out and make the best decision, which is, of course, to live in Montrose.
That's what I was going to say. We had to bring up that you live in Montrose, right? That is one of our running jokes now of the year, but Brooke does live in Montrose. And you do love that neighborhood. It's a great neighborhood. But that episode was so much fun.
And here's a clip from Roseman from the episode, Where's the Best Place to Live in Houston?
But I think I have to go with the inner loop. And I hope we can still stay friends after this, Raheel and Carly. But I think for me, it's the time and the accessibility. And that kind of trumps everything.
Brooke should be president of Montrose at this point. As she said it so many times this year. She loves Montrose, y'all.
She loves it.
All I can say is that as a former resident of Montrose, I highly endorse this award.
Yeah. I will give you a quick story. After doing this episode, Roseman is one of my dear friends. I hang out with them a lot, her and her husband and her son. But ever since that taping, we have not hung out. Okay, so that episode created a little beef between us or something.
She dished you for Brooke
because I told her to come out to the burbs. I'm telling you,
we've been hanging out, Raheel. I don't know what you're talking about. No, no.
Thanks, Brooke. Brooke, Laura, Carly, thank y'all so much for these awards and also for just an entertaining 2024. And here's to a lot of great memories and episodes coming up in 2025.
Yeah, and thank you to the whole team, and thank you to all of our guests. Even if we didn't give you a shout out right now in our special guest awards, we appreciate every single one of our contributors and guests who've come and shared their insight and experiences, and we look forward to doing a whole lot more in 2025.
Yes, thanks for giving your time to the show, and we really appreciate every single guest that made an appearance this year.
Yeah, we love having y'all on. I hope everybody has a great holiday and Happy New Year.
All right, that's a wrap on our CityCast Houston Awards and our special bonus guest awards, brought to you by our exclusive sponsor, Downtown Houston Plus. Thank you again to our guest judge, Lisa Falkenberg, editor of opinion at the Houston Chronicle, and Rita Garcia, morning anchor at ABC 13. And also a big thank you to the CityCast Houston team. And I haven't forgotten about you, the listeners who voted on the nominees. I really appreciate you taking time out and voicing your opinion because your vote did matter. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with 3 friends who live in H-Town, and also subscribe to the podcast and our daily newsletter, Hey Houston, if you haven't already. We'd also appreciate you rating and reviewing the show wherever you listen. Thanks. That will do it for today. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something new.